think we're in a much more positive position right now than we were a few years ago. Certainly, if we look at kind of the direct impacts of climate change, we've continued on that path of exacerbating emissions, of seeing worse impacts, and still little government action to do anything about it. So that side of things has continued to get worse. But just as rapidly as those impacts have gotten worse, the climate movement and really social movements in general over the past few years have grown just as quickly and have gotten so much more powerful. And that's where a lot of my encouragement comes from. I've seen that the movement is in a very different place today than it was a few years ago. I think 2009 was really the turning point for that, where I think up until that point, for most of the climate movement, the grassroots side of the movement was held back by the big green groups that were focused on Washington, D.C. And those big groups were able to say, we know how change happens, you've got to do it our way, this is what's politically feasible, this is the only option, you have to fall in line. And they held a lot of people in check with that kind of rhetoric, and they failed. They fell on their face in 2009 with the Waxman-Markey bill, which I don't think would have been a good step anyway, but they failed even to pass that. And so then in the wake of their failure, the grassroots side of the movement really stepped up and said, okay, we've done it your way, and now we're going to do it our way. Now instead of starting with what you think is politically feasible, we're going to start with what we know is necessary, and we're going to find a way to make it politically feasible. And that's led to a much stronger movement, and I think a much bigger movement. I think it inspires more people and invites more people in when we're actually building a movement appropriate to the scale of the problem. I think a lot of people were turned off from the climate movement for a long time because we looked at this massive crisis, the biggest crisis our civilization has ever faced, and the response that most people were invited to engage in was, changing their light bulbs and stuff like that. And I think that lack of scale and how inappropriate that response was to the problem actually turned people off. And people said, well, okay, this must not be a serious movement. And now I think we're looking more like a serious movement.
Did you feel comfortable emerging as a leader for that movement, and do you see yourself in that role going forward?
No, I don't feel comfortable, but yes, I see myself in that role moving forward. It's a weird role to be in, but we can't always do things that are comfortable. Somebody came to visit me when I was locked up in California, and she said, what role do you see in the movement for an introvert? And I was like, what are you talking about? And I didn't really answer the question, and then she came to visit me again, and she was like, I really want to know, what do you see introverts being able to do? And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm an introvert. None of this is comfortable. It's just what needs to be done.